my Rider-Waite deck that I got when I was 8.
Wow.
You know, it's not the only deck, obviously, but because there are so many modern decks that are based on it, and because it's how I learned, that is kind of how I'm filtering it, but that's not to say it's the only deck to use. I always say, like, whatever deck really strikes a chord with you is the one that you should really focus on. You know, and I go through phases with decks as well. Like, I don't just use this one, but I think the visual language that Pamela Colin-Smith helped to create still really resonates with me. I know it doesn't with everyone, but you know, that's how I process it. So, the Devil is a Capricorn card, and it is a Saturn card. And Saturn was also known as Chronos, or Father Time, and Saturn is a planet that denotes boundaries and limitations. And obviously the biggest boundary and limitation that we have on this earth as humans is death. And it is a reminder that our time here is finite, and it does speak to, like, what do we do with our time here while we have it. And it is also a planet of hard work and karma. And karma is such a huge concept. I'm not even going to pretend to be able to explain it to you. You know, like, I think any human being on this planet cannot really conceive of what it truly is. But I think it was Jess Puckett, who I love. She's another reader, and I don't know if this was her quote, but she said, karma is the currency of living in a material world. And so I think of it as just everything we do all the time is karma. Everything that happens in this world is karma, and we can't even be, you know, sometimes you might see an example of, like, instant karma of, like, oh, someone's like a jerk to you and then they trip or whatever, but, like, that's so rare. It's so much more layered and so much more complex, and, like, again, we cannot comprehend it. But I do believe that it is a planet that rewards hard work. So whether that is, you know, working, and Capricorn is an earth sign, and so whether that has to do with the work that you put into, like, a physical project, or just doing, like, work internally on yourself, you will have to face challenges and obstacles, but it will also bring reward. Yeah, and I said, like, Saturn is the strict teacher who you may not like in the moment, but looking back, you learn the most from. And in astrology, Capricorn is associated with the 10th house, which deals with your purpose, your career, your reputation, public persona. And Capricorn also rules over, like, structures and institutions. And, you know, each sign also is associated with a different part of the body. And Capricorn is related to, like, your bones and your teeth, right? So very much welcome. I think there's a chair over there. So yes, very much like structure. And it's the last earth sign, although it's cardinal earth, right? And cardinal signs are all about, like, how we initiate things. And Mars is exalted in Capricorn, so it's very much like a planet of action. But I think something that gets overlooked about Capricorn a lot is that it's not just the goat, it's the sea goat. And so it isn't fully terrestrial. It has the ability to reach the highest peaks or to plumb the depths, so long as it doesn't get trapped in the illusion of the material, even as it shapes its outer world. The devil can be the pleasures we experience through our senses, which are not evil, and I consider gifts from the divine. But it can also be where we become addicted to those comforts, and it can be the lies and delusions that keep us stuck, but also our journey to free ourselves. Saturn, as I said, rewards hard work. And so to me as well, tarot is a mirror, right? So, and that's why they say, like, you need to be really careful when you read for yourself. Because I know, at least from my experience, if I'm reading for myself, if I really want, I can have the cards tell me exactly what I want to hear. Like, I will, and I think I'm being neutral, and I'll lay the cards out, and it will tell me everything I want to hear. Do I believe it? Do I, how am I asking the questions? I feel like you have to be very clear and careful and intentional when you're asking questions. Because I can just ask myself, oh, does so-and-so love me? And it will tell me, yeah. Am I going to get that job? Yes. Everything you want is yours, So when it tells you all your most precious dreams or your worst fears, who do you become then? Humility and honesty are required in order to parse through the messages and not to give in to the temptation of what satisfies your ego. And, again, with the devil card. And as I said, other people will have their own ways that they relate to the devil. It's not always necessarily like evil. I don't even know that I don't necessarily believe in like a literal devil, but I do believe that there are some very destructive energies that are present on this planet, and I do believe that we can become like an unintentional host for some of those energies when we fall into like anger or bitterness or jealousy or even hopelessness. So now Lucifer.
Jenny, do you have any techniques in terms of when you're reading for yourself of getting out of that trap of telling yourself what you want to hear? I feel like when I read for other people, sometimes it's striking how this is not what I would tell them. I don't know how to tell you this, but this is what the cards are saying. Like, this is not my advice. This is what I'm seeing. But I agree. I don't often see that when reading for myself. And so, do you have tricks or techniques?
I think for me, it's just my whole approach to like life in general has been trying to master, and we never will because we're human, but trying to master the art of detachment, right? And so the more that you can like pull back from a situation and ask a question in as neutral a way as possible, and part of being detached is like, it doesn't mean being numb or like not having any feelings about things, but just about being able to zoom out. And so, I think just trying to be as neutral as I can in the way I ask a question and approaching things with a spirit of curiosity, right, is also, I think, part of detachment, where you're not trying to shape the answer you want, or I guess it would be easier, like, if you gave me, like, a specific situation, I can maybe tell you how I'd ask the question. But, I found that, I think, earlier on, I was asking questions in a way that was more charged. And more, like, skewed towards what I wanted to hear. And so, being able to be as neutral as possible and allow that, the most important, as I always say, if you really want to be a good reader, whether that's for yourself or for other people, you have to unbullshit yourself, right? And that is a lifelong process. But being able to, not try to steer things any which way, and just being really open and open to the idea that, like, it is inevitably going to tell me things I don't want to hear. But what's that saying? The truth will something, and then it'll piss you off.
Set you free.
There we go, the truth will set you free, right? But again, it can only set you free if you're willing to listen, if you're willing to accept hearing the things that you don't want to hear and they're difficult to deal with, and that's very Saturn.
Can I offer something there too? I feel that there's a few things when you're reading for yourself that you can do. One, if you're getting the positive answer, and that's the answer that's coming to you, you need to be able to see that as well, and not delude yourself that you're only seeing the positive, right? And what I find in reading for myself is a kind of gestalt where I envision myself sitting on the other side of the table, or, and I am not me reading for me. I'm the reader reading for me. So I am reading for me, but I'm not, there's a detachment, like you're saying, a compartmentalization, so that I can see the message and deliver it with compassion the way I would to a client, but still delivering the truth or seeing the truth. But if I want to see something that I want to come into my life, or that I want to manifest, or I want to be true, then I'll work with the cards in more of a meditative way, and even draw specific cards from the deck with purpose, not at random, to sort of see how I would work towards that goal rather than hearing the message, because sometimes I don't want to hear the message. So I don't know if that helps.
I also think that I have this, it's like, I love and hate this deck. It's so stupid and also weirdly amazing. It's all these naked, skinny white people. I'm just why do I even have this deck? But I love the descriptions. But anyway, she doesn't read reversals. She just gives sort of, I don't know if it's what her language is around it, but it's each card has something beautiful to tell you and something challenging to tell you, even 10 of Cups, right? It's just what is this fantasy? You know what I mean? That it cannot last forever or whatever. And so I feel I feel when I get cards that I consider challenging, I try to see 5 of Cups, well, there's a bridge, right? You know what I mean? There's some, but also in the dark cards, what is, I mean, in the even in good cards, or good cards, right? That maybe, also being willing to open up to that this isn't, nothing's all good and all bad, right? So anyway, just staying present to that, it might look like rainbows and everyone's happy, but there's a lot of thinking about that too.
I think tarot, a big part of reading tarot as well is yes, it's important to learn the meanings of the cards, but it's also important to be open as you're reading to seeing things in context and to seeing things that you haven't seen in it before.
Yeah.
I mean, there are so many times I'll do readings, and no matter how long I have been reading, there are still times I will see something I've never seen in a card, and so that is also that idea of being open. I stopped taking reversals years ago personally, because to me it's if they want to tell me something, they'll tell me. I don't know. I kind of just appreciate it being more straightforward. But like you said, 10 of Cups is Mars in Pisces. Mars is a malefic, and I don't think Mars is all bad, but it's not. There's, Mars is also separation, right? And can be about conflict, and yet it's the 10 of Cups, which is the rainbows and, like you said, the happily ever after card.
Yeah.
So, again, it also is about taking it in context with the other cards that are around it, right? Because I feel it can change the meaning of a card drastically depending on what else you have there in the reading. So I didn't get into this too much, but the devil, also known as Lucifer, Lucifer means light bringer, and there is a connection to Venus and Venus star points. I didn't get into all that, but when you think of Lucifer as a light bringer, along with Saturn, to me, what I get out of that is how do we learn through our pain? How do we learn through correction? So being right is gratifying, but we often learn the most from the times that we're wrong. And if you can't cope with being wrong, you'll never learn the lesson, and will remain trapped, repeating the same cycles, right? And I mean, in the devil card, this couple, they are chained, right? And so to me, not just to me, I mean, the devil is about addictions, and it can be about negative cycles. I often think of like an elephant that's been shackled for so long, and then you take the shackle off, and it doesn't try to go anywhere. It's like a learned helplessness, right? Like it doesn't realize that it's actually free and that it can move. It's just been like conditioned to think that it has to stay where it is, and that the devil always makes me think of that. And then of course, like the contrast, and very similar cards, and yet on the lovers they are free. They're not tethered, and even here, their shackles they're kind of loose, right? Like, and so we'll get into the related cards later. But I always think of the Eight of Swords. This person, they're bound and they're blindfolded, but the way is actually clear. Like the swords aren't in front of them, and they can follow the water, right? And water often represents our intuition in tarot. They can follow that out. There is a path to freedom, but they can't necessarily see it. And that is the Jupiter and Gemini card, which is, Jupiter is about to leave Gemini. Well, if you follow sidereal astrology, it's about to enter Gemini. So the devil is not just about being trapped on an individual level. It can also speak to toxic family structures, institutions, and societies. It is the wedge that keeps us from truly knowing and being ourselves, and from knowing the spirit. And, again, the Hierophant as well is in a very similar, it's also a triad. It's the first card that features multiple people. And the Pope, the Hierophant is also known as the Pope or the Popess, and is making kind of a similar gesture to the devil. And so, again, it's, where did I have that? Oh, yeah, here. And the Hierophant is a Taurus card, another earth sign, and it can also be dual-natured. It is an intermediary between spirit and initiates. They are teachers and conduits for spirit on the earth plane. They also represent institutions and structures of society, but how do they use this power? Do they use it for the betterment of their subjects, or do they use it to exploit and maintain control over people's lives and minds and wallets? Should the initiate/acolytes trust and follow, or do they need to rebel, reject, and connect to source through themselves? And so, again, that's that sort of Saturnian path, and it's up to each of us to decide for ourselves, what do we follow, what do we believe in, and what do we want our lives to look like? And going back to the Lover's card, which is the Gemini card, when I said love is the opposite of control, the Lovers is not the Venus card, right? That's the Empress. Gemini is about a choice. It's the twins. It's about duality or polarity. And the love isn't in what the choice is, because that won't change. It's in the ability to choose, the existence of choice itself. True love in any form does not control. It says, I love you as you are, and I allow you your own choices. I do not define you. You define yourself. I love you, but need not possess you. And I often think of, in Hinduism, Radha and Krishna, they're almost always apart. And yet their love endures. And it always reminds me as well of, there's this Sly and the Family Stone song called Trip to Your Heart. And for anyone who remembers, it's actually the song that's sampled in Mama Said Knock You Out by LL Cool J. But I'm just going to paraphrase, but there's a bit in the song where he says, if I thought you didn't want to see me anymore, you'd never see me again. And it's that idea of I love you so much that if being with me isn't right for you anymore, then I release you. And again, that's obviously we're all humans. That's easier said than done, right? But it's that kind of higher conception of love that I think we should at least, aspire to. which is like, I don't have to control you, I don't have to tell you who you are, I allow you to determine that for yourself, right? And so that's where the lovers are free, where the devil is not. And also, I think it can warn against like over-externalizing things. So yes, in this version, it's a couple, right? But it doesn't have to, like, it doesn't have to be a straight couple or a white couple, but or a cis couple, but also it doesn't have to be a couple at all. It doesn't have to be our romantic, about our romantic or other relationships. Like, I think oftentimes when, again, that trap of reading for yourself, you can kind of over-externalize. And, you know, so say with court cards, you know, oftentimes in a reading they will like denote other people, but they don't necessarily have to. Like, to me, tarot first and foremost is about yourself, right? Not in like a narcissistic way, but you have to keep in mind, like, you are reading for yourself, and so those things can all represent different aspects of you. So you could think of that couple as, like, I don't really like to use the term masculine and feminine. I just say like yin and yang, right? So like active versus receptive. The opposite of active is not passive. It's receptive. In my world, it's receptive. So yes, it is to me more about, if you're open, you know, again, it's all in the context of the reading. So sometimes it will be about other people. A lot of times, though, it's about yourself. And it can be really easy to, you know, again, see a card and be like, oh, you know, you see the lovers, and it's like, oh, that means I'm gonna be in a relationship, if that's what you really want, right? But maybe it's about achieving a higher union with yourself, with your higher self, right? And also, you know, again, I didn't get overly into it, but with the devil and the way the devil is depicted, you know, over time there was a demonization of horns and horned animals, and they were kind of used as like a rejection of paganism and of, you know, the profanity of the earthly realm. And of the feminine principle, and you know, the main threat, I think, of paganism was that there was so much, the cosmology was so focused on the feminine in a way that, you know, the Abrahamic traditions generally are not. So, okay, just to do a rundown, because you know, this is a discussion, so I want to like hear from everyone else, but I just wanted to do like a rundown of some other related cards that might help you to think about in relation to the devil. So I mentioned the Eight of Swords, so the idea of keeping ourselves trapped in false beliefs. Also the Five of Pentacles, which is Mercury and Taurus. And I'm actually thinking, not the next one, but one of the next ones I might do on this card. So to me, this is partly to do with like the Taurus-Scorpio axis, which deals with like the tension between the material and the sacred. But it's also the concept of like, who are we when we've lost everything? Who do we become when we have nothing? And what are we left with when we have nothing? And not only that, but I mean, there is hope, right? There is assistance there. If they see it, if they want it, you know, and again, it's all in context. Like, you could see this as them being outcasts, you know? And again, that smaller theme of like, with the devil, like, being kicked out of the Garden of Eden. Then we also have Seven of Pentacles, which is Saturn and Taurus. So this is very much like the you reap what you sow card. Oh, that was another thing I was going to mention about Saturn is in a lot of mythology, Saturn introduced agriculture to mankind, humankind. And so it's that idea of, you know, again, like hard work, dedication, cultivation, right? So whether that's in the material or on a spiritual level, like the cultivation of the self. Then, let's see, 5 of Wands, which is Saturn and Leo, right? And in this card, you know, a lot of people don't realize, like in this depiction, these are kids. They're play fighting, right? They're not like warriors. And you know, again, the depictions differ, but for me, 5 of Wands is like defensiveness and petty squabbles, but also it's like, what knowledge do you share and what do you keep to yourself? Then we also have the 3 of Swords, which is Saturn in Libra. And Saturn is exalted in Libra. So, and again, there's many different interpretations of this card, but to me it's the, like, knowledge, death, and loss of innocence, right? But it's also hard-won wisdom. And sometimes, like, there's certain things that you can only learn through heartbreak or through loss. And so, but it is that sort of refinement process of, like, having to come to terms with losing something or, you know, gaining wisdom that maybe you wish you didn't have, and yet it still is something that will elevate you and that will better prepare you to deal with loss in the future. Then we also have the 10 of Wands, which is Saturn in Sagittarius, which is the burdens we carry. This is also my codependency card. You know, it's... I also, you know, I'm a Taurus sun, so even though this is fire, it still does give me Taurus vibes because it's just that, like, oh, well, how much can I carry? I'll just, you know, no, it's fine. I'll just take one more. And then we also have the 8 of Cups, which is Saturn in Pisces. And so leaving behind something fruitful in order to seek spiritual growth. And then the last 3 I had were other Capricorn cards. So we had the 2, 3, and 4 of Pentacles. So the 2 of Pentacles is Jupiter in Capricorn. The 3 is Mars in Capricorn, and Mars is exalted in Capricorn. And then 4 is Sun in Capricorn. And the saying I associate with this card is we crush what we hold on to too tightly. And, you know, you can see this person is, like, very defensive. So, again, it's all in context. So this can be about having boundaries, right, which can be healthy boundaries. But it can also be about, like, where are you walling yourself off from people or from things or from change, where, you know, because, again, even though it's cardinal, Capricorn's Earth, right? And it's like, no, I'm good. Like, I know the layout here. You know, was it we fear change? So, and with 3 of Pentacles, it's teamwork and cooperation to build something in the material. So, I think the whole Pentacle suit can be conceived of as a soul's journey and perfection through engaging with and ultimately detaching from the material world. And now you can create your world, right? Like, you can influence the material world around you, which can take a lot of power and a lot of determination and energy and ability. But that ability doesn't always mean it's in your highest good without some sort of temperance or wisdom. You might surround yourself with people who always agree with you and cater to you, but does that make you a better person? Does getting what you want always create growth? It can, but it also depends on you. What resides in your heart and what you allow to take root there. Because you can also use that power to create things that support, benefit, and bolster yourself and others. How you choose to wield your power determines its quality. So, you know, at the last salon we were talking about the hermit and I was talking about the ability to, influence the world around you. And so I just wanted to clarify, like, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I think it does denote a level of mastery. Obviously, Earth is the densest element. And so it can be a really beautiful thing. I mean, we need more people in this world that can build things that are positive and healthy and not destructive, right? But again, it also, just like reading for yourself, you have to take your ego out of it and be able to, because there's plenty of people in the world who are able to have a tremendous amount of influence on it in a very real and material way. But are they doing it for good? Are they doing it for the benefit of others or for their own enrichment or for the sake of their own ego, right? So that's where that idea comes in of like really needing to detach and be able to see things from a more neutral perspective. So I just ended with a quote from Helena Blavatsky. The right motive for seeking self-knowledge is that which pertains to knowledge and not to self. Self-knowledge is worth seeking by virtue of its being knowledge and not by virtue of its pertaining to self. Seek knowledge for pure love, and self-knowledge eventually crowns the effort. The fact of someone growing impatient is proof positive that they work for reward and not love. And then I just included a photo.
Or that they're Capricorn. Or that they're Capricorn.
How dare you? I'm a Capricorn. So
So am I. I speak from self-experience. From self-knowledge.
I included a photo of a painting. It's The Temptation of St. Anthony by Dominicus van Wijnen from 1680. It's in the National Gallery in Dublin, and I used to live in Dublin, and it was always like one of my favorite paintings in there. Whenever I would go in, it was like the first one that I would head to. And, I think it's the whole concept of like a hermit going out into the desert, also is like a follow through from the last one, but I mean, it's just such a trippy painting, and there's so much in it. But I also find it interesting because, I mean, technically, he's alone. Like, all of these temptations are in his head. Like, he doesn't necessarily have, like, a naked woman, like, next to him, but he sees her there, right? And so, again, just harkening back to that, the devil and temptation, and how much of, like, the way that we conceive of those things resides in our own perspective and our own perception. So, thank you. That ends that. I guess I would like to hear from all of you. Like, especially, do you have like a really different approach to the devil? Because obviously, like, there are people who follow other traditions where, the devil is a completely different type of figure for them. Is there something I didn't touch on in my talk that, that you relate to with the devil?